A U.S. intelligence source has told the ABC a Chinese company's publication of AI-enhanced satellite images of American bases in the Middle East is helping Iranian forces identify targets. Chinese AI and software company MizarVision, which the Chinese government has a small ownership stake in, has been publishing detailed satellite images with tagging data of multiple U.S. military sites in the lead up to and during the war in Iran. The ABC's Henry Zwartz is covering this exclusive story and describes how the Chinese firm is able to obtain sensitive satellite pictures and how Iran has been using them.
So it's very interesting because many people have access to satellite data, satellite images. Anyone with a credit card and a computer can access satellite imagery in this modern era. But what this tool does is it sort of looks across a vast area of that satellite data and then does geolocation and tagging and identification of individual military assets within that target area, which traditionally has only been something that an intelligence agency like a US intelligence agency, for example, has been capable of. So it's quite an interesting development that this is just a Chinese company. The other thing to make note of this as well is that this company posted up multiple analysis imagery, AI tagged imagery of US assets, which were then targeted by Iran. So, you know, there's a clear pattern between the publication and then obviously the effect during the war.
Yes, Henry, one would imagine that intelligence agencies, particularly those in the US, would be concerned about what's just happened.
Very concerned. The Defense Intelligence Agency has told the ABC that this is a threat to US forces and by extension US allies, which by the way includes us in the region, because it provides a capability that Iran does not have. Iran does not have sort of a satellite capability like that of the United States or China or Russia. But what this software would do is that commercially available satellite imagery could be, in a sense, weaponized because the software can relatively easily identify very sensitive material on those images.
So in that vein, what do we know about the Chinese government's involvement with this company? And does it indicate, China's role in this war?
Yeah, my colleague Kathleen and I went into a bit of a deep dive here, but we found that about 5.5–6% of this company is state-owned, which is not a very large proportion. But interestingly, China has a very all-encompassing censorship regime. And it's very interesting that this company has been posting for many weeks, multiple months actually, quite sensitive material on Weibo and a social media platform, and it's never been, as far as we're aware, censored in any way. So that would indicate to us if there isn't sort of tacit approval by China, then certainly China doesn't seem to be doing anything to, put a stop to this, despite the claims by the Defense Intelligence Agency of the United States that it is actually potentially causing harm to serving US personnel.
Yes, and I suppose this does put a real spotlight on the role of artificial intelligence in conflict, doesn't it?
Certainly, and it's a growing issue. There's enormous positive potential with AI, but also there's enormous negative potential with AI, and what we're seeing is an example potentially of how AI can be weaponized and cause significant issues and put at risk, in this case, put at risk US personnel, but also, as we've reported on today, there's 100-odd Australians who are serving in that area in the Middle East, and potentially they're at risk as well. So I think that what we're seeing is the rapid pace at which AI is changing the nature of information warfare.
And just finally, what has the Chinese government had to say about this all, given it's got a small stake in that company?
Sure. The Chinese government did respond to us. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that any reference to them having any sort of involvement in aiding Iran and targeting US bases, which is what the Defense Intelligence Agency report suggested, was sensationalist. But, we come back to the fact that this company has been posting material that's very sensitive for multiple weeks, including in the week leading up to the conflict, very much zeroing in on US bases and assets. And as far as we can tell, China hasn't been muzzling this sensitive material. So, sometimes actions speak louder than words.
Yeah, it's a rather fascinating yet ominous development in this war. Henry Zwartz, really appreciate your reporting on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.